Upon closer inspection of the character Jimmy McGill, we can see how many of his personal difficulties come from an inability to find a deeper meaning in life events. As someone who chronically lacks personal insight, the task of applying lessons based on experience is an activity that doesn't come easily for Jimmy. Let's take a look at how the character often misses the hidden meaning to events, failing to sink into the metaphorical and symbolic significance, while instead remaining in the shallow end of the water. This will be examined through events in earlier seasons, culminating with an analysis of the second half of Season 6. In Season 2, Episode 6, Kim is upset with Jimmy for sending her to doc review. As Kim is getting prepared for work, Jimmy has left a voicemail in which he sings the lyrics to the song Bali High. He's appealing to her love for classic movies, as the song is featured in the film South Pacific. On the surface, the song seems to be about romantic love and courtship, but upon closer research, we discover that Bali High is a name for Makana Mountain in Hawaii, and that Mount Makana means reward or gift from heaven. Jimmy misses the idea he is purporting, that he is the one who will be her savior, the one who will provide a holy place for Kim in this dangerous world. He is unconsciously inflating his own importance while thinking it's just an innocent love song. By the end of the episode, Kim is back in Jimmy's arms, believing that everything is perfect and heavenly in their lives. He is unable to realize the spell he has cast on her, primarily due to understanding the song in a simplistic way. In Season 2, Episode 7, Jimmy is trying to find ways to get out of his contract with Cliff Maine, and he stumbles across the Inflatable Man promotion for an oil change shop. It seems like he may be having an insight into himself, but that notion quickly vanishes as a smile comes across his face. Jimmy soon takes the external appearance of the inflatable as inspiration for his outlandish suits, providing the basis for his scheme to get laid off by Cliff. Perhaps if Jimmy was more introspective, he would have seen the symbolic significance of this prop. He could have recognized how it mirrors the way he is constantly floating through his days. They are both objects without any sense of direction. The flowing advertisement is just like Jimmy's lack of self, each being a helpless victim to the winds of time. In Season 3, Episode 8, Jimmy and Marco break into his parents' former store in order to obtain some classic coins. Jimmy soon takes out his coin collection, which is hidden in a Band-Aid box, and he again misses out on the poetic nature of his choices. The items of monetary value inside the box are what Jimmy often applies as a healing medicament for his emotional wounds. In Season 4, Episode 4, Jimmy is working at a cell phone store, and he is doing his best to reel in customers. He is lost again, without a law license and without direction. He decides to create a large message on the front of the store, beginning with the phrase, "Is the man listening?" Jimmy sees the message as a way to attract potential buyers, but couldn't he also see it as a message directed towards himself? Jimmy is desperately in need of asking bigger questions like, is there anything else out there? Are there larger forces at play? Might he be ignoring the calls of his conscience? But instead he goes on with his day, focused more on selling phones than answering the call from his inner self. In Season 5, Episode 9, Jimmy and Mike have returned from their desert exodus, and they are talking about possible future scenarios. Jimmy is wanting some certainty about upcoming events and what might happen with Lalo, and Mike proceeds to explain things through the allegory of bad choice roads. It is a visual representation that doesn't lend itself to concretism or literalism. It aims to paint a picture instead of spell it out directly. When Mike finishes, he asks,
"Do you understand that?"
And Jimmy is not completely on board. Instead of allowing the narrative to have some power over him, he essentially dismisses the story and the narrator, wondering why he is needing to discuss major problems with Mike. Later, when Jimmy is speaking with Kim about her choice to give up her private practice work, he attempts to utilize the same metaphor to convey a similar message. But Jimmy stumbles on the words and fails to relay the meaning, primarily because it created no meaning for himself. The words didn't sink in, and instead remained on the superficial level, as he is more concerned with the facts of the story as opposed to what it might signify. In Season 6, Episode 1, we are presented with a scene of Jimmy's house being cleaned out after he has relocated to Nebraska. We catch a glimpse of a painting of gods in the upstairs bathroom, followed by a wall full of mythological figures in the dining room. Perhaps Jimmy likes the way the art looks, or maybe he even identifies with the figures, thinking he is on the level of a god. Something alluded to when he tells Howard he can shoot thunderbolts from his fingertips. But once again, he can't crack the shell. Like one who reads about mythology on Wikipedia, he can't perceive how he himself is ensnared in his own Greek drama, one in which he is experiencing an archetypal pattern of a mythological character's fate, where he is the individual who is devoured by the beasts of hubris and pride. He's missing out on how these stories can help us to recognize our faults and avoid the fate of the merciless gods. In Season 6, Episode 4, Kim is paranoid as she believes someone is following her, and Jimmy tells her,
Well, you know what they say. The wicked flee when no man pursueth.
She tries to understand what he means by it, asking if he thinks that each of them are evil in some way. But he shrugs off the idea and says it was just an expression. He again uses a phrase that is appropriate for the situation, while losing out on how its meaning can be applied to his life. He fails to grasp the idea that guilty individuals often feel like they are being watched by something, seen by a higher power or an inner self, something which makes them feel like they are being pursued and can't get away from an ever watchful eye. He is paralyzed by a blinded inner vision, taking the quote as a cool thing to say and nothing more profound than that. In Season 6, Episode 9, when Jimmy is finally revealed in his full-blown Saul Goodman existence, he is ready to see clients and says,
All right, let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
Jimmy believes he will be the one serving justice and that the heavens may fall for his clients, but he hasn't permitted his experience to help shape his understanding of what justice might be. This brings us back to a scene earlier in the episode when Mike is speaking to Nacho's dad. Mike tells him that justice will be served for his son's death, and Nacho's father contends that Mike doesn't understand what justice means. It doesn't involve revenge or a type of retribution paid from one person to the other. Justice is instead the result of one's actions, which accumulate over time. A concept similar to karma. It is the way that a person gets what they deserve based on past actions. It falls outside the realm of personal feelings, rising past the limited understanding of our human egos. But to understand justice in this sense, one must have lived it and seen its power played out, as opposed to have read about it in a book, taking it only for the dictionary definition. Jimmy is one of those people who is walking on the exterior shell of this virtue, unable to dive deep down and allow it to transform him. He will instead remain ignorant while allowing justice to ravage his life. In Season 6, Episode 11, following his call with Francesca, Jimmy is driving his car and he comes to a literal crossroads. But it's a figurative one too, as he stops to consider an important choice that will determine his fate. Before this point, it seems like he may be able to continue in Nebraska as is. He has rid himself of Jeff's threats while settling into his job at Cinnabon. But he also has the choice to call Kim and enter into a timeline that he could easily avoid. He could see this cross in the road as just another stop sign to blow past, or he could imagine the way that he needs to stop himself from taking a path of further destruction. Following his heated conversation with Kim, he is back at work, staring at the industrial-sized dough mixer. It's mirroring the cyclic processes occurring within his mind as he is contemplating his next crucial step. As mentioned in a previous video, it seemed like at one point in Gene's story, the Cinnabon spiral was serving as an opportunity to go inwards and upwards, towards a possible point of change and redemption. But in this final Cinnabon scene, the dough is represented as just a block of butter, sugar, and flour. It's as if the shape of the dough is reflecting Jimmy's current mental state, being without shape and form. It all reminds us of a scene from earlier in the series, one in which Howard refers to Jimmy as a golem due to his salivation over the sandpiper money. A golem is a creature which is defined as an automaton. It's an unformed lump of mass which will always act without thinking and often perform tasks literally. We're seeing how Jimmy is that golem, just as he is that unformed lump of dough in the mixer. He is each of those things, but he just can't see it, as the symbols are not allowed to have a transmuting effect on his psyche. Later on in the same episode, Jimmy is speaking to the man with cancer at the bar. Jimmy purports that all the people in finance are untrustworthy and deceptive. The man responds by saying there is a special place reserved in hell for those types of people. Jimmy seems to ignore this comment, most likely believing hell to be a literal place, not considering how it may describe a state of mind and soul that one creates by never recognizing their destructive patterns. It's a place that Jimmy may have entered already, while still awaiting the lowest rung of the inferno. Then in the final episode of the series, Jimmy is in the desert with Mike, and he asks him where he would go if he were to build a time machine. Mike thinks it's comical at first, but then he puts himself in that figurative space, knowing that time travel is not literally possible, and says he would go to the time when he took his first bribe. He is primarily concerned with trying to adjust bad decision-making in order to live in a more upright fashion. Conversely, Jimmy says that he would use the time machine to go back in time and invest money. Mike responds,
"That's it, buddy."
And Jimmy says,
What else?
there is a fundamental difference between the two of them. Mike understands the time machine as an opportunity to contemplate your existence and think about how one can improve upon the single life they have been given, whereas Jimmy is only interested in using it to amass material wealth and things. He sees the machine as a tool for manipulation, as opposed to a learning device for human betterment. A similar conversation occurs between Jimmy and Walt prior to their extractions from Albuquerque. Walt becomes frustrated about the time travel idea and says,
You are talking about regrets, so if you want to ask about regrets, just ask about regrets and leave all this time traveling nonsense out of it.
he doesn't understand why Jimmy would bring up such a topic other than it being for metaphorical purposes. Walt says he regrets his inability to follow through, his lack of commitment to his work, and the damage that these choices have caused him. We can tell Walt has thought deeply about this. He has placed himself within the realm of regrets and landed on a striking answer. But when Jimmy speaks about regrets, he refers to a time that he performed a slip and fall and injured his knee. The shallow answer further indicates how he cannot take on the symbolic attitude. He is limited to his narrow state of mind. Jimmy presents a highly superficial form of regret that seems to have had no real impact on him, causing Walt to respond,
So you were always like this.
Walt is referencing the way that Jimmy has always been cut off and disengaged from himself, and how this detachment is preventing him from changing as a person. Jimmy can never see things from the inside of his experience. It's always from an outsider perspective. It's as if Jimmy is watching his life happen to him, like the character from the book The Stranger. And just as anyone can read a book or watch a show like Better Call Saul, we can either be uninvolved and removed from the medium, or we can immerse ourselves in it and let it change us from the inside. But that type of engagement requires a commitment and an attempt to grapple with tough ideas, a task that Jimmy is never up to. Then, during one final flashback, Jimmy is dropping off Chuck's groceries as they speak about his work as an attorney. Chuck wants Jimmy to reconsider his career and his attempts to follow in Chuck's footsteps, but Jimmy has closed ears. And within the context of this video, we may be able to see exactly what Chuck is getting at. He knows that Jimmy sees the attorney profession at the surface level only. He sees it from the outsider perspective, relying on ideas of what it means to be a lawyer as his basis for the work. He views it in terms of making money, gaining prestige, and getting one over on others, all concepts he has picked up from observations over the years. He does not see the profession from the inside like Chuck. Chuck, on the other hand, has created his own meaning of what the law is for him, accomplished through hard work, dedication, and immersion in the field. He understands what justice, truth, and other values mean for him through his experience, resulting in a comprehension that transcends purely literal definitions. As Jimmy leaves, we see a disappointed Chuck pick up his copy of The Time Machine, and the details make that much more sense. Just like Jimmy failed to create his own meaning regarding the law, he replicated this act with the book he carried around long after Chuck's death, a book that is meant to be read symbolically as a possible representation of class struggles, or even as an archetypal trip through the psyche. It can only be seen by Jimmy as a way to literally travel through time to get what he wants. He again takes it all for face value, unable to rip past the outer coverings. Jimmy ends up in prison, and we see him making bread for the other inmates, graduating from dough-making status at Cinnabon. No matter how you slice it, this is not the future that Jimmy thought he was cut out for. The kind of justice that Jimmy was ignorant of has finally been delivered with an ironic twist, as he will forever fail to grasp the significance of only being able to make the dough which is ingested as opposed to the kind that is invested. This has been the psychology of Better Call Saul. One more video coming up. Thank you for watching.